Talk to me, Rob. What you think about how the Western Conference is shaping out halfway through the season?
All right, so first things first, we gotta talk about the Utah Jazz. Everybody been jumping on their bandwagon. Everybody thinks that they're a good team, and rightfully so. They're a very good basketball team. The whole question is going to be how sustainable is it really going to be, and not just how sustainable, but what is the playoff success going to look like. Now, first things first on sustainability, I think they're flourishing right now off of 3-pointers. They made like 53 pointers in the past 2 games. They're on a crazy stretch. I personally do not like that for sustainability. There's always been a saying: you live by the gun, you die by the gun. 3-pointers gonna go in, and some days 3-pointers not gonna go in. So because of that, I don't necessarily see them as being something that they can actually sustain. Now, if they had, the saying "live by the gun and die by the gun" isn't necessarily always applicable. This right here wasn't applicable with Golden State when they had Kevin Durant, because they had Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Kevin Durant. They had shooters like that. The Utah Jazz, yes, they have shooters, but they're not generational shooters. Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, those were generational shooters. They could have sustained that, but with the Utah Jazz, we seen this last year. They didn't shoot the three like that. We seen them play 2 years ago. They didn't shoot. They didn't shoot like that. We talked about the Utah Jazz at the beginning of this season, and we talked about how they didn't necessarily make any crazy changes. Donovan Mitchell isn't necessarily averaging 5 points of what he averaged last year. No, Jordan Clarkson is now averaging like 18 points, shooting like 40% from the three. Donovan Mitchell, pretty much everybody on their team shooting damn near close to 50% from the three. That right there isn't sustainable. They're gonna catch a streak, possibly a week to 2 weeks, possibly even a month, where they shoot around 33% from the three. And are they gonna still win basketball games? As far as playoff success, I don't know. I really don't know, because the last time we seen him in the playoffs in the bubble, Donovan Mitchell was going off. He was out of his mind, and they blew a 3-1 lead. People get on Golden State Warriors every single time. When they blew a 3-1 lead, everybody just completely forgot the Utah Jazz blowing a 3-1 lead. Now are we gonna completely trust them again in the playoffs? I don't know. But me right now, I think they're a very good basketball club. But as far as put money on them to win the championship, I don't know.
Well, I have zero faith in the Jazz winning the championship. I really think it's a long haul if they get past round one. I think that to give you more perspective, I think you can compare them to the 2014 Atlanta Hawks when they went 66 and 22 or something like that, and they were the number one seed. And once they got to the playoffs, they kind of disappeared. I think we just live in an era where, and this has been an interesting season too with COVID and everything, but I just think we live in an era where the big names don't really care about the regular season. Just get me in the playoffs, and then we see people start to take the game serious. LeBron James has been the number one, the face of this type of style. We just cruise for the regular season. Just get me in the playoffs. It doesn't matter the seeding, and once we get into the playoffs, that's when you really start to take it serious. And it happens every year. You see guys like Portland, guys like Denver, the excuses of, they're not experienced enough, or they're not a playoff team. I think you really can't look too deep into the seedings until you get to the playoffs, and then you get to see, like, okay, you really know it's just going to come down to Clippers, Lakers, or from the West, Clippers, Lakers, possibly Denver, depending on if they have enough experience this year or not. But I think you really just have to wait into the playoffs to really take seeding seriously.
There is one team, in my opinion, though, that I think we could take a lot from this season. It has to be the Phoenix Suns. I talked about them being my second favorite team because of the general manager, James Jones. But it's not really just because of their record. It's how they're winning basketball games. I talked about this with the Jazz. Is it going to be sustainable? The way the Phoenix Suns are winning basketball games is from defense. And not only that, not only just by the low-scoring games, but also slowing the pace down, something that happens a lot in the playoffs. You're going to have to play, a lot of half-court offense, and Chris Paul is arguably like the master of half-court offense. Now you have Devin Booker, who is also an assassin, but also you have a very good presence in the paint with DeAndre Ayton. He might not bring it every single night, but he's also a walking pretty much 15 rebounds a game, also could potentially give you 20 points. They have very good individual defensive players as well. Jay Crowder. They got Cam Johnson and Miles Bridges. They're young wings. Just a very good team.
I was gonna say about the Utah Jazz. I disagree with you said the 2014 Hawks.
14 Hawks.
I'm gonna have to disagree with that one, because the Hawks, as good as they were, they didn't have a player dominant like Rudy Gobert or like Donovan Mitchell. These are some great players I'm talking about. The Hawks were a good team, but this is a good team led by great players, and that's why I feel like if they stay hot how they are now, and Anthony Davis doesn't come back, I can honestly say I see the Utah Jazz coming out of the West if Anthony Davis doesn't come back healthy.
Out of the West?
Out of the West, I feel like they are the best team in the West right now if the Lakers don't have Anthony Davis. Look at their track record for the last couple games. They smoked the Celtics. They smoked the Bucks. They smoked the Heat. They beat the Sixers by 11. They had a back-to-back with the Clippers, and they split. The game they won by damn near 20. And then they just finished pummeling the Lakers last night. That I feel like they're making statements right now that will carry over to the playoffs. And if Anthony Davis doesn't come back, the Utah Jazz are coming out of the West.
Again, man, I'm never going to question Donovan Mitchell. I think Donovan Mitchell is an absolute killer. But you really putting a lot of stock on Joe Ingles, Bogdanovich, Rudy Gobert. You putting a lot of stock on these guys. And also the streaky Jordan Clarkson. One night he might shoot 100% from the three, and one night he might shoot 0% from the three. You have absolutely no idea. So I think just sustainability, I don't see it. I think, in a 30-game sample size, you might see something. They might look very good, but in the next 30 games, it might look completely different.
Yeah, I gotta agree. As Rob said, they're all shooting. If they were to sustain this, the Jazz would have about 5 or 6 of the greatest shooters of all time, because they're all shooting about 50% from the 3-point line. It's nuts. But the win streak you name, a good 4 or 5 of those teams were shaky Eastern Conference teams. Because I didn't hear the Nets, who are, that would have been a statement to prove. The Lakers are down bad, beat up. Bron doesn't even take the season serious, and not only is his other playmaker, Dennis Schroeder, out, but also Anthony Davis, who's arguably a top 3 player in the league. I just don't think that they can keep this up, and I definitely wouldn't put my money on them in the playoffs. I still have the Clippers over them. I still have the Nuggets over them. I still have the Lakers over them, granted everybody's healthy and comes back ready to play.